Hello, welcome to Seaside Quilting Supplies. My name is Terry, and today I'm not here to teach you, do a tutorial. I'm here to show you a new rotary cutter. Well, it's new to me, and why I've fallen in love with it. It's one that Barb and Mary have been showing quite often on the Thursday night lives where we show notions and so forth. And they've bragged about it, and I finally have one, and I'm so excited. I'm just in love with this rotary cutter. For those of you that have been watching my tutorials, have been seeing me use the Martelli rotary cutter, and I had tried to convince everybody that my rotary cutter was the better cutter. It's not, and I'm going to show you why. So here's a little history of me with rotary cutters. I've had several over the years. I have two older ones that I've kept because I like to repurpose things. If I have an old mat that I've destroyed, because I do a lot of cutting, I tend to be heavy-handed when I cut. So I've destroyed some mats. Let me tell you, I've destroyed some expensive mats, let me tell you. Martelli mats are one of the more expensive mats. I love them. I can't say enough about them. I feel that they are worth every penny. However, I have destroyed one really badly, and it's with their own cutter. But anyhow, let me show you the history of my cutters. I have arthritis in this side of my hand, really bad. I had to have my hand reset, and I've had arthritis in it ever since. So it's important for me to have a good cutter and one that works for my hand so that I can do a lot of cutting. And as you know, when you're cutting with rulers and a rotary cutter, it can take a little while to cut out a quilt. And I like to cut all my pieces ahead of time and take everything to my sewing room and have sewing room. I'm in my sewing room. Take it to my sewing table and have it all set up and organized so I can put my blocks together. It's just how I am. That's what I like to do. So this rotary cutter, you just press down, the blade moves down, and you cut. This is mostly what we had available back in, many years back. We didn't have a super lot of choices, or not a lot of choices that I knew about, because we didn't have internet back, and so forth. Yes, back when the dinosaurs walked Earth, we didn't have a lot of choices in things. You couldn't buy things on the internet and so forth and so on. Anyway, this does have a nice little handy button that moves from soft over to hard. However, whenever I move my switch, it never cuts it doesn't cut at all. It only cuts when I leave it in the center. So I really have never figured out what those options are all about, because they've never functionally worked. The way that this is threaded for the nut to go on is lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Let me tell you why that's bad in a tool. So when you're using it, it loosens itself up. So as it's rolling this way, this is rolling this way, and it loosens up and it wobbles, and sometimes my blade has even fallen off on me. I think this might be ambidextrous, but I don't know because I'm right-handed. So that was probably a good feature at the time. However, it loosens itself up, and it's really a problem for me. Probably if you used it left-handed, it wouldn't, well, it still might, I'm not sure. But that's a feature that was not a good feature for me. It causes a lot of pain in my hand because of how I have to hold it. It puts a lot of pressure right up in here, which is where I have a lot of arthritis, right in here and down through here. So that was not a good option for me. One day I happened to be at a quilt class, and I was supposed to bring my own rotary cutter. I forgot my rotary cutter. I had already replaced that a few years back. And I use that one for paper because I don't cut paper very often, and cardboard. So I use it for that. Whenever I have an older blade, I switch the blades out to the other ones. Well, I happened to be at a, like I said, at a class. I needed one, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. I was only going to have to use it for the class. So I went and I found something that wasn't very expensive. It was actually on a sale, so I felt like that was a bonus. Actually, it was the last one in the store. That should have been a clue. But it was really cheap. So I picked it up. One thing that I did like about it was you just press the button and the blade comes down, which I liked a lot better than that other one. And you press a button and it goes up out of the way. It's really important when you have children in the house that you're able to secure your blade and keep it out of the way so that people don't just go over and accidentally cut themselves. But the problem with this is the same problem as the other one. The way that the nut goes on, it loosens as I cut. It doesn't loosen up slowly either. It only takes 3 or 4 cuts. It starts to loosen, starts to loosen, starts to loosen. So I have to constantly remember to tighten this back up or my blade falls off. I don't like that. I keep one. I have a back room that's my craft room for painting and paper stuff and who knows what. Everything's back there. All my sewing stuff is in my sewing room area. So this one stays in there and one stays out here, and whenever I switch out blades, I put them into here and then switch them out. So there's that. So here's the one that I was in love with. It took me a long time to learn how to use this, or to get used to holding it, because the way that it sits in my hand, I have to twist my hand a little bit to this side. There is a little bit of tension in my wrist, I'm not going to deny it, but you have a tendency to kind of want to lean when you're cutting. So whenever I'm teaching people and I'm using this one, and this is not ambidextrous. If you buy one of these, you have to buy one for a left hand or one for a right hand. That becomes a problem when someone comes and I'm teaching and they forgot their rotary cutter and I got to send them back home to get their rotary cutter. And I won't let anyone use those other two because I don't want someone to have an accident with the blade coming off and cut themselves. Well, because that's dangerous. So you do have to get used to holding this up straight. It's something you have to build a consciousness, awareness for, to make sure that you're keeping it up straight. Now, the other problem that I have with it is when I go to take it apart, I have to pinch my 2 fingers together. I have a real hard time loosening anything that's small, and I have to grip it. Even little, little bottles and whatnot. If my husband's not home, it doesn't get opened. That's just how it is. I can take some pliers, but you have to be careful that you're turning your screw in the right direction or you can strip it. So you really have to pay attention to that. This one is wonderful in the way that they knew to have this go in the opposite direction. So it's actually lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. But you have to remember that when you come over to undo it. And sometimes I'm trying to turn it in the wrong way. And I'm like, why isn't it coming apart? Then it puts a lot of stress on my fingers. And the next thing you know, I'm trying to find pliers. And I use my pliers and I gently loosen it up. And once I get it loosened, then I can take this apart. Once you take that out, you have to push right here, this piece of plastic. You have to push here to get this out. If there's a lot of lint up in here, that doesn't happen very easily. It's hard. I have to use 2 fingers. I put 1 thumb on there and then I push with my other thumb. And I hold on to this with a death grip because I've had it slip out of my hand and scare the crap out of me that I was going to cut myself. I didn't cut myself that way. I've cut myself another way with it. But anyhow, then once you get this piece out, you have to take your blade out. Sometimes it sticks in there a little tight. I have to go get needle nose pliers, hold on to it with needle nose pliers, and pull it out to get it out. It does make me a little nervous taking it apart because I'm worried about cutting myself. It does build up a lot of lint up underneath here. I don't know if it's from moving this back and forth, but it is nice that the guard, I can control the guard with one finger. I've gotten really good about being able to move it. And I'll do that a few times after I've cut because it will knock some of the lint out from here and up in here. After about a week or two of cutting, I build up a lot more lint and my blade starts to skip. And so as I'm cutting, I'll have several pieces down through my piece that didn't cut. My blade didn't go all the way through. I call it skipping. I'm not sure exactly what you would call it. All I can tell you is it doesn't make a smooth cut once that starts to happen. When I see that happening, I need to take it all apart, clean it all out. I spray some dry silicone spray up in there and put it all back together. If you're not careful when you put it back together, there's two slots. There's one where the blade goes in, and then there's one where this piece goes in. I've accidentally a few times put my blade in the wrong slot and had my blade get trapped up in here and thought I broke it. And I have sometimes put an indent up in there, not very good. And then I really have to tug on it with some needle nose pliers to get my blade out. That's the part that I functionally don't like about it. But I got used to it and I accepted it because I could cut longer with this cutter than I could the other ones that I owned. I didn't have as much pain in my hand. I could cut for a longer period of time. So I accepted that I had to clean it out a lot. Now with the Quilters Select rotary cutter, I'm sure that if you've seen Barb show this on the Thursday Night Lives, you've seen this before, but if not, then I'm going to show you now. This is ambidextrous, so it can be used either hand. You just press the button here and move your guide up out of the way. This is for left hand. If you're right hand, it's got to come up the other way. I just tap it and make sure that you hear the click and it locks into place. The handle is nice and wide and has this anti-slip grip silicone on each side. Because of the width of it, it sits a little bit better in my hand. It's not putting a lot of pressure down in here where I have a lot of arthritis. I'm able to hold it a little bit better with my hand. And I'm not getting a lot of pressure up in here. The other thing that I really like about this is that this part is magnetic. It's really easy to clean this out. So I'm sure that some lint will get up in here. Probably not as much as my other, just because this slides up, so I don't think you're going to get as much in there. But there's always some oil on your blade, so I'm sure that a little bit will get in there. But this is easy to change out. You just slip this down. This is magnetic, so my blade doesn't fall off. It's easy to pick up your blade and put a new blade on, and then you just slip it back in. Whoops, wrong side. You just slip it back in and then slide that up, and bam, you've changed your blade. Quick and easy. If some lint does get up in here, you can quickly take it apart, brush it out, stick it back up in. It won't take much time at all. It takes me about 15-20 minutes to clean out my Martelli one. which is, you know, it can be an inconvenience. Time is, you know, spent on that is time I can spend quilting. So you just move your blade guide up out of the way. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to cut. So if I'm not pushing hard to cut, I'm not putting a lot of pressure up on my shoulder. And I had my shoulder freeze a couple of years ago. It took quite a long time for it to heal up. And anytime that I put too much pressure down here, I'm putting pressure up on my muscles, up in my shoulder, which ends up causing me shoulder pain at night. So what I really, really am in love with, besides the fact that it comes apart easy, which is going to be a time saver, is that I'm not having to push down as hard to make my cuts. And I'm getting nice, smooth cuts each time. So the other day when I tested this out, I wasn't even feeling like the fabric was cutting, which really had me worried. Because, you know, if I'm not cutting my fabric, then what am I doing here? Can I cut that one? And I love this new Stripology ruler that I got in. I'm going to do a whole tutorial on that coming up. There's a lot of different things to it, a lot of ways to use it. So I'm going to go over that all by itself another day. But this is how I cut a lot of strips. As you can see, my strips are all cut. Nice, clean cuts. Just wonderful. I didn't have to put a lot of pressure. I'm feeling my mat. There's no deep cuts. I always do take my mat smoother and I clean over where I've cut after I've made a lot of cuts to make sure that it's all cleaned up and nothing, because you don't want fibers stuck in your mat because it can't heal properly. But I didn't make any deep cuts, which is awesome, because there isn't a time that I cut with the other one that I don't get some grooves that I need to clean out so it can heal up. And that over time damages your mat. And it's just not worth losing your mat over it. So let's take a look. I'm going to double this up again. Let me see, I'm going to go this way with it. Got a little bit of a lump in my fabric. This is just some cheap fabric. I would never use my good fabric to cut up this way and throw out. But this is some cheap fabric that I had on hand that I just use for different odd stuff. Like this, basically. When I'm showing someone how to cut that's new, that's here in person and whatnot, learning, it's better for me to use something cheap that they're going to mess up, possibly, and not ruin any good fabric, because I'm not into ruining my good fabric. So now I have 8 layers going. And it cuts beautifully. I'm not having to put a lot of pressure. I didn't get that one quite as well. I went a little too fast. Yeah. 8 layers is a little bit more, so probably do need to slow down just a little bit when I'm cutting. But still, really nice, clean cuts. I'm really satisfied with that. It's easier to clean. It's quicker to clean out. It's quicker to change my blade. It's doing nice clean cuts without a lot of pressure, which is not going to be putting that extra pressure on my shoulder that I was getting with the other one. That in itself is really important for me, not to be having pain in my hand, not to be having pain up in my shoulder, because then I suffer quite a bit in the evening. So I wanted to take a few minutes just to show you the Quilters Select rotary cutter. I know it's probably not new to all of you. It's new to me, and I'm excited about it. So I wanted to share it with those that haven't seen it before. And if you have not tried this rotary cutter, I know it's a little more expensive, but you really do get what you pay for in a tool. And this is nice and heavy duty. Barb has said to me that she's dropped hers several times, and because this is made of a nice sturdy metal, it's not going to break on you. It's nice and solid, and I feel like it's worth it because it's going to last a long time. So anyways, I hope that you've learned a little bit about the new, well, for me, new rotary cutter, and I hope that you have a great day. Happy sewing.